Hello brothers and sisters, welcome another episode of a very powerful confession with our sister who shares her life story with us. This is about how a prophet was using her for his rituals to the dark powers to become more powerful anytime they had intimacy. If you are new here, this is Dangerous African Confessions HD, where we bring to you confession stories to help you make your own informed decisions about your walk with God. Without taking much of your time, let us go and listen to the story. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and also do like and share this video, so others out there can also benefit from this conversation, and hit the notification bell as well, so you will be notified anytime we upload videos.
Honestly, I didn't expect to be here, telling you all this. But I've been carrying this secret for too long, and it's time. I have to tell the truth, even if it means talking about everything I've lost. You see, everything started so innocently, with a prayer, a word of encouragement, and promises of a future I never imagined I would be a part of. But now, I see it. I see what it really was. A lie. A manipulation. And I was part of it, part of something I can't undo. I want to go straight about this whole thing with you. The thing is that, it was at a time when I felt lost. I had no direction. And then, that was when I met this prophet in my life. One thing I will give him is that, he spoke in such a way that you couldn't help but believe him. He made me feel special, chosen. I thought, maybe, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. You see, he told me that I was destined for greatness, that my life was going to change. And for the first time in so long, I believed someone. Not knowing that, it was all a part of his plans to get me to believe him so much that he will end up getting into my pants. It feels like a lifetime ago, but I remember it all so clearly, the way things unfolded. Back then, like I said, I was in a place of darkness. My heart was broken, my life seemed meaningless, and I was surrounded by chaos. I was going through a bitter breakup, and there was this overwhelming sense of emptiness that I couldn't feel. I was desperate for answers, desperate for change. To be honest, I did I could. I had tried everything. Therapy, medications, distractions. Nothing worked. And then, I met someone who seemed to understand, someone who promised to give me the answers I was searching for. No one took me to him. I went to the church myself. How I got to know about him is that I came across an online post by his church promoting the prophet services. I didn't believe in things like that. But, at that point, I had nothing left to lose. His name was Prophet Samuel. I didn't know who he was at the time, but there was something in his words that struck me, something about restoring broken souls and delivering people from life's deepest struggles. Again, what I will say did the trick on me was the fact that his followers claimed he could perform miracles. Some even said he could heal the sick and lead people to unimaginable success. I remember listening to one testimony of a woman who said she was healed of a chronic illness just by attending one of his prayer services. Another woman spoke of how she found financial prosperity after being prayed over by him. I wanted that so badly. I needed something to change. So after taking the directions on the promo, I did walks into the church where Prophet Samuel is hosting a service one evening. The atmosphere was peaceful yet charged with anticipation. There were so many people, everyone seemed so eager, so hopeful. I felt a sense of belonging that I hadn't felt in so long, if you know what I mean by that. It was as if he had almost closed his service, then he said that God is showing him something about a lady who is feeling lost. He said that the lady has been struggling with darkness in life, but I see light coming for you. God is here, and he will restore you. If you believe, you will see your life change. To tell you the truth, it felt like he could see into the deepest parts of my soul, like he knew everything about me without saying a word. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt a wave of peace wash over me. It was like something inside me was waking up for the first time in years. After saying those words, the prophet walked down the aisle and approached me. He reaches where I was sitting, and he places his hand on my forehead. He told me that the Lord has a special purpose for me. And because of that, my pain has not been in vain. My brother, I felt a warm sensation spread through me, a rush of energy and peace. That was when I didn't even know where the tears came from. I began to cry. That moment, I'll never forget it. I had never felt so seen, so understood. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment my life started to spiral into something I would regret. But you see, in that instant, not knowing what was coming for me, I felt hope. I thought it was a blessing. Little did I know, I was stepping into something much darker. Something ungodly. After he prayed for me, and told me that I should be visiting his church more often so that he can help me with prayers and directions. So, I started going to his church all with the hope that I will be a different person and will see some form of transformation in my life. I didn't realize it at the time, but he was already starting to weave his influence over me, little by little. It was so gradual that I couldn't see it, even when things didn't feel quite right. When I first started attending the services, it was all about healing my soul, healing my heart. And he promised that with his guidance, everything would fall into place. Something I must say is that I should have gotten it. Because always it was about God has called you to greatness, and you are destined for a life of joy and prosperity. Trust me, and I will lead you to the path of peace. But you must surrender everything, your doubts, your fears, your past. Only then will you be free. Always something similar along that path. It was more like leading the people to believe that, without you, there is nothing they can do. And that is exactly how he got me. And I know some other people who had fallen for that also. At first, I must say that it felt like a miracle. Every time I came to him, I left feeling lighter, like the weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. He seemed to know exactly what I needed to hear, always giving me the right advice. He spoke about faith, surrendering to God's will, and trusting in his timing. I began to trust him, too. He always told me that the Lord has great plans for me, but I must trust the process. Sometimes, God's work is hidden, and the path is hard to see, but he promised me that I will never walk alone. And assured me that he was there to guide me. Would you believe it if I tell you that I began to depend on him more than I should have? Part of the reason is that he told me that I have a special destiny, and that God has brought me into his life for a reason. And so, I started telling him everything about my past, my fears, my dreams. And he'd listen, as if he could see right into my soul. He told me that I was special, that I was destined to do great things. I believed him, with all my heart. He made me feel important. He made me feel like I mattered. I know that I have been a fool of myself. But then also, when you become so desperate that you think you need answers to your problems by any means, this is what happens to you. Reason why I just made that statement is that he started inviting me to private sessions. And I never questioned it. At first, I thought it was just to help me grow spiritually. He'd ask me questions about my past relationships, my family, things I hadn't even shared with anyone. I didn't think much of it. He was just trying to help me, was all that was on my mind. The thing is that, as his meetings with me progresses, Prophet Samuel became more tactile in his interactions with me. He gently touches my hand or places his hand on my shoulder during sessions, offering reassurance. His words start to have a deeper, more personal impact. It was subtle at first, the way he would touch my arm, or hold my hand just a little too long. I wasn't sure how to feel about it, but it felt comforting. His presence was overwhelming. It was like I couldn't breathe without him there, and it made me feel needed. I remember when he told me that I am strong, and I don't even know how powerful I was. He told me that he can see that my heart longs for something more, something deeper. And to tell you the truth, it was true that I was searching for something deeper for my soul, which I didn't even know or understand for myself. So, I started to feel both conflicted and drawn toward him. I started having these beliefs that his spiritual guidance has unlocked something within me, a desire to feel loved and wanted that I hadn't experienced before. One evening, after a counseling session with him, he sat close to me and gently took my hand. He told me that I was so precious to him. He told me he sees the woman that I am becoming, and that he can't stand to see me in pain any longer. Then he dropped it that he also feels a connection between us, a bond that's more than just spiritual. He then asked if I also felt same. I told him that I didn't know, and that I've never felt anything like this before. He has helped me so much, and I can't imagine my life without him. He moves closer, his touch becoming more intimate. To tell you the truth, I felt a sense of warmth and comfort, but also confusion. He convinced me that we are meant to walk this path together, and that the Lord has brought us together for a reason. He told me that I was not just a follower, but rather, I was his partner in this journey. He told me that he needed me as I also needed him. That was when he first kissed me. I felt overwhelmed by the emotions flooding through me. At that moment, I believed that our bond was meant to be, that it's a sign of divine love. That very day, he had his first intimacy with me. Honestly, I didn't see anything suspicious about him during and after the act. All I was thinking back then was the fact that this really might be the workings of the Most High. He made me feel special, chosen. I thought that this was love, real love. I thought we were both on a mission, connected by something greater than us. But now, I know it wasn't love. It was manipulation. He was playing on my vulnerability, using my need for affection and my search for purpose to tie me to him. After that incident, we became closer, the romantic connection growing stronger. We started spending more time together outside of the church, lunches, private meetings, casual outings. At this point of me knowing him, the lines between spiritual guidance and romantic interest blur. Over time, his influence over me grew stronger. He began to subtly isolate me from my friends and family, always telling me that only he truly understands me and that others might not have my best interest at heart. The truth again is that, at that time, it made sense to me. He was the prophet, the one who had helped me more than anyone else. Who else would understand me the way he did? But looking back, I see it now, he was slowly pushing everyone away from me, making me dependent on him. I couldn't see it back then, but I was losing myself. I was becoming someone I didn't even recognize. And all along, he was pulling the strings. Over time, my relationship with the prophet deepened, and for some reason, I started to experience things I couldn't explain. I became physically tired, emotionally drained, and began to have strange dreams or unsettling feeling. Silly enough, I attributed them to spiritual warfare or the prophet's guidance. There were moments when I felt something was off. I'd wake up feeling exhausted, drained. But he always told me it was just the spiritual battle I was facing. That's how he described it, a battle for my soul, one I had to fight with his help. Not knowing that, indeed I was in a spiritual attack. But it wasn't from anyone but himself. Yes, I will explain it to you. You see, in all the times I kept on having these strange happenings around me, he on the other hand kept on assuring me that it's just part of the journey, because I am being tested. One thing I couldn't fathom is that, even though I thought he was the answer to all my prayers, but the more I leaned on him, the more I felt like I was drowning. That was something I certainly didn't understand. Again, I will say that, please don't be so naive and not wise enough, like I was. Looking back, I can see it now, the signs were all there. But at the time, I was too lost in the relationship, too focused on my spiritual journey, to question what was really happening. I trusted him completely. And yet, something was wrong. Something wasn't adding up. I started having an intense dream about him. At first, I thought they were just a product of stress, or maybe my subconscious trying to process everything that had happened in my life. But the dreams were different. They felt so real, too real. I would dream of Prophet Samuel, but he wasn't the man I knew. He would be standing in a dark room, his face shadowed. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just watched him from the corner of the room. In the dream, he stands in the shadows, his eyes glowing unnaturally. The room was dim, with strange symbols etched into the walls. In the dream, he would call my name, softly at first, and then louder, more forceful. It felt like he was summoning me. And every time he spoke, it felt wrong. Like the words were coated in something dark. Something unholy. And I will always wake up telling myself it was just a dream. I started feeling off. Not just mentally, but physically. No matter how much I slept, I felt exhausted. I could barely get out of bed some mornings, and when I did, my limbs felt like they were made of lead. My stomach would ache, and I'd feel dizzy for no reason. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That was when it all started to manifest in real life. To shock you, he stopped coming closer to me. I believe you understand what I mean by that. When I questioned him, he said the Lord is asking him to stay off me for some time. Because I will have to go through some things before I can get to where I am supposed to be. The next few days, I started seeing some rashes on my private part. My brother, these rashes started to burst, and the scent that started coming out of it was so strong that I started staying indoors and not going out again. Every place of my private part was now sore, and I couldn't do anything about it. I had gotten myself medicines to treat, but nothing was working. When I tell him about it, he would tell me that he is working on it, and as soon as he gets the directions for me, I will be fine. But things were getting out of hands for me. It started to dawn on me that I might lose my life through this very issue. Because, if he being the prophet that I believe and I know how powerful he was, is not getting the directions for, I felt I was not going to make it out of it. My brother, the day that I got to know that it was this same pastor who have been sleeping with me is responsible for my predicament, I really did the unthinkable. How could he have done such a thing to me? Okay, how I got to know is as a result of me gathering the courage to call a friend of mine and explain to him about my issues. Because at this point, there was nothing for me again. And letting him on it, even though felt bad, I didn't have anything to lose. Reason for me calling him is that I wanted him to remember me in prayers, because he was also a junior pastor, some pastor. He then called back later and told me that his pastor wanted to see me. This is because he said there are a lot of secrets he needs to reveal to me. At first, I didn't want to go, because I felt very uncomfortable going there. Because of the fear of how my place smelled. But he came over to my place and forcefully took me to his pastor. I owe him my sanity today. Had it not been his persistence, I might not be here today. Because that is exactly what the pastor told me. When I got to the pastor's place, he prayed with me and asked that I spent some few days at his church place. So, this guy never left my side for close to about 3 days when his senior pastor came to me. I remember very well that day was a Friday morning. I wish I could tell you that the moment I started having doubts was when I ran away from him. But it wasn't. It didn't happen that way. No. I was too deep, too entangled in everything that had happened between us. I couldn't just walk away. And even when the truth started to seep in, I fought it with everything I had. I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe in the prophecy, in the mission we shared. But the truth was undeniable. What made whatever this pastor told me about Prophet Samuel started to sink in was the way and manner he took his time with me. Even when it was obvious I didn't believe whatever he was telling me about someone who loves me so much. He still kept patient with me till he started telling me things that he was not supposed to know. One is when he talked about Prophet Samuel always wearing a chain like a pendant whenever we were intimate. Again, he told me that I always felt asleep whenever we finished making out, whether my place or at his place. And this was true. The moment we finish, it won't even take me like 5 minutes and I will fall asleep. Not knowing that, the pendant is what causes me to fall asleep so that he can clean my private part for his spiritual rituals that he does. So, I was actually not someone that he loved. But I was just a means to an end for him. He was using me as a sacrifice for his powers. He explained to me that that is why I started having those strange things happening to my body. And eventually, because I didn't deal with it spiritually, that is why it has resulted in my having those issues in my private part. He told me the truth that the next thing for me is for my death. But he will intercede for me with the blood of Jesus to set me free. My brother ended up spending almost about 2 weeks in his church. When I got the information, I had wanted to go to his church and expose him and tell it all. But the pastor told me that I don't have any spiritual protection to confront him, and so I must take it out of my mind. Because he can deal with me spiritually if I try him. Yes, by God's grace I am okay down there. And I now do go to Sunday service with this pastor that helped me. But for now, in my life, I do pray in my room, trusting the Holy Spirit to do it all for me. I'm not any pastor or human being. I only am telling my story purely because I know my fellow sisters who are sleeping with pastor here and there. Please, you might not know how and what he got his powers from. Advise yourself. I have been a victim before, and I have learnt my lesson in a much more bitter way. Don't be like me. Because you might not know how your own will end. Thank you for your time.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. I want to talk about something that's often overlooked but very important, the dangers of seeking miracles in the wrong places, particularly in churches where some pastors may be using deceptive or even demonic powers to manipulate people. It's natural to want to see signs and wonders, to feel hope in times of difficulty. We all desire miracles, but we must remember that not all who perform miracles are doing so through the power of God. Some pastors and leaders prey on people's desperation, using tactics that may seem miraculous but are, in fact, driven by demonic forces. These pastors may manipulate the congregation, promising healing, wealth, or breakthroughs, while leading people further away from the truth of God's word. Here's where it gets dangerous: spiritual manipulation. When we seek miracles above truth, we open ourselves up to spiritual deception. These pastors know exactly how to tap into human emotions and fears, using them to gain power, money, or influence over their followers. Instead of turning to God's true word for guidance and healing, people get distracted by false promises and end up spiritually broken. The Bible warns us in Matthew chapter 7 verse 15 to 16. It says, "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit, you will recognize them." This means that not every person who claims to be a servant of God is actually serving Him. Miracles are a sign of God's power, but we must test every spirit. Be cautious of anyone who is more focused on getting your money, admiration, or loyalty than on teaching the true word of God. So, here's my advice: if you're looking for miracles or breakthroughs, make sure you're seeking them through a solid relationship with God, grounded in prayer, studying the Bible, and connecting with leaders who are genuinely guiding you towards spiritual growth. Don't fall for flashy promises or emotional manipulation. Remember, God's miracles are real, but they come with truth, love, and peace. Don't let anyone lead you astray for their own gain. Stay grounded, stay prayerful, and stay vigilant. I hope this message encourages you to be discerning in your spiritual journey. Thanks for watching, and we shall meet again in the next video. Thank you.